Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Courtney Dawson, and today we have an incredible guest that I am so excited to share with you, to have her come on here and tell her story. Her name is Susan Lazar Hart. Now, Susan, did I pronounce your last name correct?
Brilliant.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. She is a transformational mindset coach. She's an author, mentor, and motivational speaker who has helped thousands of creatives around the world find harmony in the inevitability of change. Wow. Her expertise in smoothly navigating change draws from her own struggle with heavy metal poisoning, which dampened her vibrant life and sparked her studies of homeopathy, body awareness, and quantum physics. And combining these and other modalities, Susan has established the Congruent Life Method, and as a guide to recognize limiting beliefs, build a powerful mindset, and confidently call in abundance. Her newest book, Breaking Free Your Unique Path to Fearless Living, empowers her readers to create lives they genuinely love. Wow, I love that. Susan, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm just so excited to get into this.
And I'm so honored to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's kind of go to maybe step back just a little bit before we kind of delve into the fearless living. Talk to us about like what happened with the heavy metal poisoning and how did you find out that's what it was and what did that look like for you and what were really some of those aha moments or those moments of inspiration where you're like, something's got to pivot?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking that. I've always been a creative. I came into this body. You know, I believe we're an infinite spark that chose a body to have this experience in Earth School. And mine was to be a creative. And that was my commitment from the moment where they put me on the sidewalk with chalks. I'd be happy for hours. You know, I'd be that last person in kindergarten when everybody was cleaning up their stuff I'm like, but I'm not finished. So there I was, you know, very fast forward. There I was with my own studio, raising a family in architectural magazines and galleries, collectors, happily painting away. Unfortunately, I was so into the paint that I wasn't aware of the toxicity of what I was breathing in daily. And those were the days. Now they have a lot of awarenesses. There's all kinds of ways to have a studio that's clean air. Pigments, on my pigments, I melted them and then I remelted them with varnishes. I also was a printmaker. And so I was just constantly breathing in the fumes. And at one point, I felt like my brains were being sucked out of the back of my head. And I looked in the mirror and my eyes were yellow and my hair was falling out, my eyebrows, my eyelashes. And I had my stool checked, by the way. If anybody asks, how do you check? Get your stool checked or your hair checked. And so they said, you actually have heavy metal poisoning. That's what's going on. And I went to the top toxicologist in Montreal, and he was so status quo, I just didn't connect with the way that he was speaking with me. And I got on my bike, and as I'm biking home, I said, okay, universe, there's two things I was aware of today. One, I still have a hell of a temper because I let the guy have it. Number two, I need to find an amazing homeopath. Now, I had never delved into homeopathy, but that's what came out. And the very next day, I meet up with somebody from our preschool days and, hey, how are you doing? What's happening? Well, I have heavy metal poisoning. She goes, really? I say inside my head, I'm going, thank you, universe. And the next thing she says is, I have an amazing homeopath, but she's so busy, you'll never hear from her. And the very next day I called this homeopath. She called me right back and we worked together we still working together. And her first thing was, it took you 20 years to get this heavy metal poisoning. We're not doing it with chelation in 6 months or bust. She said, we're going to take our time and we're going to slowly breathe you back into this amazing body you chose for this experience. And that's where that investigation started. Because the first thing I had to ask myself was, oh, damn, if I'm not a painter or printmaker, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really realized, oh my God, we attach ourselves to the who am I, not the I am. Mm-hmm. Right? Not the I am. But who am I? And once I started to connect with that, I started to look at the body in a different way, not as an object, but as something that I chose. I did lots and lots and lots of readings. I connected with hands-on energetic body healing. I started meditating. I started connecting to nature. I'd always been out in nature, but now I started putting my hands on the trees and asking them tell me what you know. I started appreciating the courage that we all have to take us into every day by living in the question, not the answer. And so as I started looking and reaching and really it was that huge awareness, because everybody says, so what do you do? Not they just want to know who are you being right now as you're speaking with me, right? And so that was huge. And I went back to university and got my certification in coaching and counseling and started to just be present with all that there is out here that has us living in all dimensions all at the same time. And I'm sure like you, like many of your listeners, you had those aha moments all the way through and you kind of put them off to the side. Like I remember being in college and saying, I'm the boss of me. And this force pushed me right back onto my bed and said, you want to rethink that one, honey? And all those things that I'm rolling up my sleeves on this one, all those things we take for granted. Well, if you have the courage to be with appreciation and gratitude for everything that brought you right here, right now, you see you're not alone. You never were alone. And so it's that gratitude for the heavy metal poisoning that had me open up to these awarenesses, to have me acknowledging with appreciation, to have me digging deep and having those deeper conversations. And so therein lies the appreciation for everything we choose that brings us, that builds that foundation, on that foundation of seekers, of light workers, of curiosity, of discovery, of truly, okay, what else is possible here for me that I haven't been willing to be or see? Because I am that. Yeah.
That's incredibly powerful, Susan. And it's interesting because even my own health issue that I've dealt with for about 9 years after a car accident triggered myofascial pain syndrome. And very, very difficult. And it led me up personally on a journey of inner healing. And the more that I healed, the more that I healed, the more that the pain subsided, the more that I came in contact with who I really was as a soul being, this soul that's animating the physical body. And I'm curious, just your thought, your opinion, your expertise. Do you find that common in the people that you work with, that there's like a catalyst or a health crisis that perhaps triggers this deeper awareness of self and the I am and the oneness of all life?
I wouldn't call it necessarily a health crisis. There have been. I
Yeah.
think I always say, people say, well, who do you coach? I say, people who wake up in the middle of their lives
Yeah.
going, is this it? Is this the pain that's going to drive me through, whether it's psychologically, physiologically, that you can see how excited I am about your question. Thank you. That it's really, as you so well put, the body gives us messages. And you might have a pain in the back of your neck. Well, before you decide that it's serious, you might ask yourself a question while you're walking in the woods. Okay, so who is a pain in the neck in my life right now? Or whose pain am I taking on?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not mine. People will say, oh, I got something in my back. And I'm like, well, is there anything that you're hiding behind you?
Mm.
And often I'll say to my body, I'm so sorry. I'm just too stupid to get the message. Could you give it to me in another way that's more gentle, that gives me more information? Because you chose a body.
Yeah.
Right? The body is in you. You're not in the body. So yeah, I would say people come because they're on a quest. They have a quest. They're thirsty. Like, what is this all about? What's this life all about? What's this body all about? What is this all about? Yeah.
We've got this incredible book here that you've written. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about it and then really kind of want to delve into it. So, what inspired you to create this incredible book about fearless living?
I've been writing a book for about 5 years. And when I was speaking on the speaking circuit before COVID, I would have a big poster and it said fearless leadership in my face. People would say, oh, I'd love to buy your book. And I'm like, oh, it's just stuck at the editor's. Really, I was just not willing to finish the book. And so one morning I woke up and I saw this this information about a book doula. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's all about. So I had a conversation with her and she said, would you like to really give birth to your book? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, okay, put that one aside. Now, talk to me. And I just opened up about being fearless and fearless living and the willingness to take those baby steps and see what that creates, and then take another step and see what that creates. And the subtext is your unique path to fearless living, because every one of us has a path. We don't have to know what it is. More than not, we don't know what it is. But if you're willing to be the invitation for that path to unfold in front of you, that's what fearless living is all about. And so once I made that commitment, the book took me all of like 90 days, done.
Wow.
The painting on the cover is mine. It's something I did when I was 19, when I was traveling around the world with as one did in those days, with my paints and my knapsack, and I'd always take them out and be painting. And that painting I saved. It was just a watercolor, and I had it on my wall. And my granddaughter said to my daughter, "Mom, that's Nana's painting." She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "It's in the book." "Yeah." So part of my job as a grandparent is to be a pattern interrupt, is to show that, yes, that's right. There's a thread that runs through everything. That's the crack where the light goes through, as Leonard Cohen says. And so that's what created this book. It
Wow.
something I knew when I was 19,
That's
that
incredible.
at the age of 70, I would then bring to the world.
That's wild. That's
Yeah.
so inspiring, because we
Thank
can
you.
have these inclinations of our soul speaking to us, and things are, and I love how you use the analogy of birthing, because that resonates so deeply with me. We are in this constant evolution of birthing, but are we going to allow it to really transform us, or to manifest here into physical form where others can receive the richness and the blessing of our creative, our healing, whatever that might be. Some people might think hearing like fearless living, that might sound a little bit daunting, like, oh my goodness, because there's a lot of people, not everybody, but there's a lot of people that I encounter just even in my own work that lack self-esteem, don't trust themselves, or struggling with self-worth issues. What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is, you're my people, so please come and talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And what that list you just gave us, that sidebar, the brain loves a story.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't want to give up on a story. It likes the brain, the mind. It's comfortable.
Yeah.
So blame, shame, regret. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. Those are things that we were taught at a very young age to say,
Yeah.
because they were given validity. Like, when you meet somebody and how are you doing? "Oh, I'm not so well." "Really? Oh." So you have this false sense of intimacy. Rather, if you bump into somebody and say, "How you doing?" "Brilliant. How about you?" And they're like, "Oh, well, good for you."
I
The
know.
brain, the brain loves a story. So the story that I'm terrified, the story that I can't, it's really about asking, first of all, who does that story belong to? If you weren't telling yourself that story, like, one of the questions I'll ask is it really true? Well, of course it's true. Okay, what if it wasn't true? Who would you be? What would that feel like? What would you be doing? What kind of conversation would we be having right now? And that's where that information, it's replaced the old story with the new story. Up until now, I haven't been able to do this. It's so fascinating that you're asking me that question. I have a membership group called the Congruent Living Academy, and we meet right before you and I are having this conversation. And one of the members said, "Well, I'm terrified of this." And I said, "Well, let's look at this word terrified." Terrified means there's a past story in there, right? I can't means there's a past story in there. So you're living off of the past stories rather than being totally present and saying, what would I love? If I wasn't being terrified, what would I love to create? Who would I love to meet?
Mhm.
How could this possibly work out greater than I ever thought? And that's being fearless. That's saying, no, I'm not, just for this 10 seconds, I'm not going to let that past emotion, thought, feeling, story take over my life. I'm going to say up until now, and then I'm going to say, what would I love?
Yeah. Wow. In your book, you talk about breaking cycles that hold people back.
Yeah.
What are like three of the most common fear-based cycles that you see with people that you're working with? And really, why are they so hard for people to break?
Well, I'll go answer the first question, the last question first.
Yeah.
They're hard to break because we have a story. We have a story. And not only that, that story was nurtured when we were little. So what's the biggest cycle that people, I can't,
Mm.
I don't know how. Well, chances are that person was told at a very young age, you're not doing this correctly. And it could be as simple as, I'll use my own for example. So when I was little, I went in the kitchen and I made some cookies. My mom, for me, was a great baker. And I went and made some cookies. And as my brother said to me, oh, there is hard, you could use those to fill the cracks in the sidewalk, Susan. I was raised with brothers. What can I tell you? And so my mom says, okay, I'm crying. She goes, go upstairs, dry your tears, come back, and I'll show you how to make these cookies. So I came back down and I heard my father telling my mother, she's crazy, just like your mother's sisters who ended up in the loony bin. So not only did I not do did I fail at this task of making cookies, because my mother, being my mother as an alpha, kind of took over, right? As watch me. But I also found out, oh, I'm not only that, my dad thinks I'm crazy. So as I went through life, my first assumption was I can't possibly do this. Could you do this for me? And not to show up when people expected me to be doing something because I thought, oh, they'll find out I'm crazy. Well, now I know crazy's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I'll have that and more. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So it's breaking the cycle of believing what you overheard about you or were told about you that is not real or true. It's someone else's point of view about you. So I would say that's one of the biggest ones is getting out of that cycle of leaning back into stories, what references, what you've decided you can or can't do, and starting to acknowledge you're different. And let's celebrate that difference. And I would say that of all, like when you ask me for three, I would say that's the biggest one. Yeah.
And do you find that that transformation takes time to integrate with people because they are at some level perhaps experiencing resistance, staying with the uncomfortable, the fear, kind of that saying, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, you know what I mean? And then what is on the other side of this? How do you coach people through that? Because I know that listeners that are, hearing what you're saying are like, I would love to do that. But
yeah,
how do we get over the but?
Yeah. I would say you don't get over it, put it to the side.
Yeah.
Because we're taught that it's a big problem. And it's really baby steps. It's learning to learning to listen to the words you use, because every word has an energy to it. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's how you're choosing to show up with yourself. And so what I do with my clients is, like, I have a sticky note right here. I have sticky notes everywhere. Just because you can't see what you're looking for doesn't mean you can't see what you came here for. And so it's not about looking to change it. It's about who are you asking to be? What did you truly come here for? It's about doing the inner work. Because once you start to do the inner work, it's so tasty and juicy. You get these aha moments about yourself. It's really about you. This is your world, how you see we all have our own lens and how you choose to see the world. Once they start to get a different sense, oh, I'm crazy and that's kind of fun. Right? Oh, I can do this. And then appreciation, gratitude. So if I can do this, I wonder if I could do one more step further, just one. And what would that feel like? And you slowly start, I say the biggest thing that I work with my clients is for them to learn to honor their word to themselves.
Mm.
So once you start to honor your word to yourself, even if it's as simple as make your bed in the morning. People think, oh, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be, a podcast person or whatever that is. Well, it's where's your foundation? That's the first thing. People don't even realize they came here, as Emile Zola says, the French philosopher, to shout out loud, right? What's your foundation? Is it mine? Oh, mine is curiosity, discovery, kindness, aware, the willingness to take that space and be aware. That's something we're not taught at a very young age, that your voice counts. And part of congruent is connecting to your own voice, owning what you say to yourself. You're not creating your life for somebody else. And that's one of the biggest cycles, is that we're taught that we're creating our life for somebody else. And so the biggest thing that people work on right at the beginning is, this is your life. It's your one true precious life. How do you want to play with it? What do you want to do? Like, let's start there with you. And then once you start doing that work, it almost becomes addictive.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't, like I'll often say, turn around. Are you who you were when you came in here? Even in this conversation, you and I aren't who we were when we started this conversation.
Yeah.
We have more of each other in our lives right now. Isn't that yummy?
I love it. It's interesting because as somebody who, grew up in a traumatic home and had a traumatic first marriage, there was a lot of trauma and pain and shame, and there wasn't space for me to speak, to be me, to share my feelings, my thoughts. They were very much discouraged. And I'm very open on my show, so people know me. I just, it's the truth. And when I went on that deep inner healing, there was so much physical resistance where I started to have illness and aches and pains and different things come up. And the body speaks to us a lot when we're not using this incredible instrument of our voice, which I feel is an extension of our soul. And I love, and I 100% resonate with you, Susan, where it does become addictive. It's those initial stages where we feel fearful, and it's only because it's something new. But then after, you feel so good and you feel light and you feel so connected to your soul, to your body, to the I am, to the oneness of all life. You're like, where are you going to sign me up? How do I get more of this? And it is this cycle where you can keep going around the same old mountain, as my mama says, or you can take a detour and go somewhere new. And it is this place of fear. So we've kind of talked about a bit some of those fears that people experience. Can you recap, what are your 3 keys? What are the 3 keys for people to move out of that fear so they can step into their power? They can step into their I am. What would be the 3 things that if someone's coming in working with you, what would you work, kind of chronological order?
Well, the first thing is there is no chronological order.
Okay, good.
It's whatever pops. One of the things that I have a buffet of tools, from mediumship to hands-on healing to the compassion key. And one of the things we're not taught is to be compassionate with ourselves.
Yeah.
So you might come in and you might bring something up, and I might ask you, so at what age did you connect with that emotion? Because we are emotions. We're not this thing that has an emotion. We are emotions. And they might say 2, 3, 4, and I might say, can I talk to that 4-year-old, please? Would you be willing to talk to the 4-year-old? And so we'd have this 4-year-old in front of us and ask the 4-year-old what occurred at that time and how did you feel? And then it's extending compassion to that. I'm so sorry no one loved you. I'm so sorry you felt unheard. I'm so sorry you weren't even missed when you disappeared from the family. I'm so sorry nobody heard you when you talked about being molested. I'm so sorry nobody cared enough about you to protect you. I'm so sorry you felt alone. And so once we start working with those feelings and that little being heard, that's the very first step of the big healing. Because as long as you're holding on to that little being inside of you, saying, I'm terrified, it's to be able to hold that little being and say, I'm so sorry you felt terrified. It's because we were never acknowledged when we were little. And so we built up this rod going right up our back We built up, I can take it, or I'm going to just hide from the world. Everybody will figure out who I am if I come out. All kinds of things. And so we forget the acronym for fear is there's two. One is forget everything and run, and the other is face everything and rise.
Oh, I've never heard that last one, Susan. Oh,
Yeah.
that gave me goosebumps. That's
Yeah.
so good.
So because it's a journey, it's never going to be over. Right. There'll be deeper understandings, deeper awarenesses. I mean, I can tell you at 71, when I look back and say, I wish I had those tools when I was raising my kids, or I wish whatever that is. But I can also be compassionate with myself and say, every time I hear myself judge myself, I'll say, I'm so sorry you were taught to judge. And as soon as you start acknowledging that within you, because we're not just one person, we're made up of many, many beings that brought us, again, to this moment in time with each other, with your listeners. And once we have that awareness, it becomes intoxicating. It becomes exciting to do this self-transformation. That's why I call it transformational mindset, because our mind has been set to a comfort level. And as ridiculous as it sounds, as painful as that is, it's something we know. And in this reality, you're not taught to try anything you don't know. You're actually criticized for it. And so that's, when you talk about steps, that's one of the very big cycles that we need to break through. That's why it's breaking free, because it's breaking free from all those voices, all the belief systems, whether it's government, religion, parental, whoever took care of you, teachers.
Yeah.
Right. And you're told, do what they say, not what they do. So you believe them because they're going to clothe you, feed you, give you a good grade, whatever that is, so you can move forward. Well, what are you moving forward to if you're not bringing you with you? And that's a huge awareness for so many people, because most people know, they know when they're not being them. Right? Yeah.
This is so deep. This is so deep. I love this so much. This is so juicy.
Yeah.
For me, I'm just like soaking it all in. I got to get your book. I love it. I love this so much because it's about recognizing we're in this world. There's 8 billion people now, last time I heard statistically. There's 8 billion people who are influenced, family, religion, politics, government, societal belief systems, whatever that all it looks like, influence from social media. There's so many influences that try to drown out, whether that's intentionally or not. I think personally, my belief, I think it's a bit of both, that tries to drown out our voice so that we just go and follow the crowd. But what you're talking about, this ain't it. That's not what this is all about.
Oh, no. And that's all about control. There's no if. It's about control. If you convince people enough, if you make them myopic enough to doubt themselves, you can control them.
Yeah.
So what I'm offering is take a step back. Right? We're the only species on the planet that buys into all of this nonsense. Right? I mean, that huge tsunami many, many years ago in Thailand, all the animals left. It's the dumb humans that said, oh, look, an extra big beach. Come on, babe, let's go down to the beach today. Right? Yeah. Because we're not taught to just listen, be quiet, use our knowing, be in tune, and not buy anything as true or real. Like, in your gut, no matter what everybody else is saying or doing, in your gut what's right for you and what brings you joy. And we came here to be joyous. The planet loves laughter. It's like, bring the laughter on. Yeah.
Absolutely. For our listeners here that are feeling maybe stuck, overwhelmed, trapped in fear, what's one thing that they can do today that can help them pivot?
Well, I'm all about living in the question. So my question would be, there's 2 questions here. Write it down. Write it down, because once you not type it, take a pen, take some paper, write it down, because there's something, a transference that happens from your guts. It's creativity when you write something down. I'm afraid. I'm so afraid that,
Mhm.
whatever that is. And then ask if it wasn't true, if this wasn't true, who would I be? What would I be doing? Where would I be living? What would that look like? And then write this down. My courageous life still wants me, my company,
Mm,
because it takes courage. What I'm just suggesting you do, it takes courage.
yeah.
It takes courage to look at, oh, well, I'm afraid of whatever that is. My biggest fear today is nobody will love me, or I won't get the raise I want, or I can't do what people expect of me. And then ask yourself, is this really true? And if it wasn't true, what would you be doing? And then put this on a sticky note. My courageous life still wants my company. Because I'm going to tell you, for people to be listening to this, it took you courage. Whoever you are out there listening to this and putting everything away aside for the time that you're devoted to this, without the bells and whistles, it took courage for you to acknowledge, wow, I'm going to tap into my inner knowing. This might be something I need to listen to. I'm going to connect to my spirit. I'm the connected spirit with Courtney.
That's incredible. It's incredible. I love that advice because it's practical, not easy, but it's
Nope.
practical
Nope.
and it's doable. And it's something that I really feel people should invest in doing because we can put so much time and effort into worldly obligations, whether they be literal obligations or a false narrative that we've created within our mind, whatever that source may be from.
Yeah.
But to create the space for us to heal, to take responsibility for our lives, to call back all the pieces of our soul that we've left to different timelines and pains and wounds and go, no, no, we still have a journey.
Yeah.
We still have things to accomplish.
Yeah.
That is
Yes.
so transformative. And that's open to every single person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's your birthright.
Yeah.
That's why you chose this experience, right? That's the sacred message that you had as a spark, saying, okay, I'm going to take this one. I'm coming down. And I wonder what that could create if we had a different way of being and looking at our lives and living and creating a life we actually love. So we can turn around with courage and say, wow, today might not have been my best day, but it sure was interesting.
I love that, Susan. Susan, can you tell our listeners where they can get in contact with you and what you have up and coming? And then we'll make sure that all of that information is in the show notes for the listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, they can always reach me at my website, susanlazarhart.com. And I want to share, if you don't mind, with your listeners, I've got something really exciting for them.
Yeah.
If you're feeling stuck or wondering what's holding you back from living a life you truly love, I have a free gift that might just be the game changer for the conversations that you heard with Courtney and myself. It's called the Transformation Toolkit. And it starts with a cycle breaker quiz. And I love that. I mean, Courtney and I hadn't even talked about this. I love that, Courtney, one of the questions you asked me is, how do you break the cycle? So we don't know what our own cycles are, but this quiz will help you uncover the patterns and beliefs that might have been keeping you stuck. And once you've taken the quiz, you'll get access to a 5-minute exercise to boost your inner belief. Because the truth is, your dreams are possible. Living a life you love is possible. So with this toolkit, you'll not only discover what's been holding you back, but also begin the belief that you can create a life you love. And that's called susanselfcheck.com. And that also is on my website, but it's easy with susanselfcheck.com. And what do we have coming up? There's going to be a wrap up the year with a win. Haven't gotten that up on my website yet, but we always do that in December because it's so important. You know, listening to anything that you and I have been talking about, it's about celebrating the wins, right? It's up until now, this hasn't been working out, but you know what? Here's a win that I do have that I do want to celebrate. And then the Congruent Living Academy is opening up again for another 12-month membership in January. So we'll be putting that up soon as well. But I have waiting lists, so there's always, put your name in the waiting list and I will personally reach out to you for sure. Yeah.
That's incredible. Everybody go and grab that quiz, go grab that freebie, because it's something that is not just another one that kind of ends up in the spam box. This is something that's actually going to help you. It's useful.
It's
And
free.
and it's free. And I just encourage you to take advantage of that and let it be a gift that you give yourself. You deserve that. You deserve that and so much more.
Yeah.
Susan, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your perspective. It's been so, can I say, thought provoking for me, where I'm like, oh, that just lands differently. I love that.
Thank
It's been
you.
so incredible. Thank you so much for just being on the show and sharing your voice with my listeners.
Well, thank you for inviting me and celebrating our moment together. I've so enjoyed being with you, and I love the connected spirit. It's what we're all about. We're all connected for sure. Thank you. Thank you.